Hello, everyone. In this video, we're going to talk about taxation, welfare, and deadweight loss. Some questions that we're going to ask ourselves in this particular video are: why do we pay taxes? What are different types of taxes? And what specifically are excise taxes? To get you started, taxes pay for a lot of services that society needs. These are things like our police, our military, and infrastructure. There are several different types of taxes. So we have things like income tax that come out of your paychecks, payroll taxes that companies pay to the IRS and various state and local authorities, property taxes, corporate profit taxes, sales tax, and inheritance tax. Excise taxes specifically are taxes that are imposed on a particular good or service. These could include things like cigarettes and alcohol. Another excise tax is typically found on gasoline as well. So next up, we want to look at tax incidence. Here we want to show that the incidence or the burden of tax is independent of who specifically is legally obligated to pay that tax. So first up, we're saying, suppose the government imposes an excise tax on milk. The question we want to answer is, who exactly pays for the tax? And remember, tax incidence is just the burden of taxation on the party who pays the tax through higher prices. And this is going to occur regardless of whom the tax is actually levied on. So if the government imposes an excise tax on milk, suppliers are going to increase their sales prices. And that means that the tax incidence or the burden of this particular tax will end up on the consumers, even though the tax is levied technically on the producers. Without the tax, the equilibrium price for a gallon of milk would be $4. The tax burden on the buyer shifts the curve down by the amount of the tax. So in this case, demand is going to decrease because the price is going to have to increase. You can see here that now buyers are paying $4.50, but sellers are actually only receiving about $3.50. They're receiving less than that equilibrium price, and buyers are paying more than that equilibrium price, but the overall burden of that tax or the tax incidence is $1. Now we're looking at it from the seller's point of view. Without the tax, the price is $4 and the quantity is 1,000 gallons. You can see here that when the seller's taxed, it shifts that supplier curve and it's going to go up by the amount of the tax. So from E1 up to this new price that goes up by $1, which is E2. And you can see here that because that price that buyers are paying now has gone up to $4.50, sellers are only receiving $3.50. Because sellers are receiving less, they're going to go ahead and shift or scale back that supply curve from 1,000 gallons down to 750. In this case, the tax incidence is still $1 because in this case, the price without tax would be $4. Buyers are paying $4.50, but there's still not that particular supply available. So let's look at both cases. If a tax is levied on consumers, some of that burden will be passed to producers since the market price is going to fall. If a tax is levied on a business, that firm will attempt to raise their prices to pass off some of that burden to customers. So the incidence is going to be the same either way. You can't always put the incidence on one particular person, consumer or producer. It's going to be levied on both the consumer and the producer. Next up, we want to look at deadweight loss. So far we've shown that a tax actually hurts both our buyers and our sellers. Buyers are going to pay a higher price and sellers are going to receive less money. Did we miss anything? Well, the answer here is yes, we did miss something, and that's going to be deadweight loss. Deadweight loss is just the decrease in economic activity that's caused by market distortions. So we know that efficient markets have little to no government intervention, and that they'll naturally work their way back to where they need to be. But when we have these taxes, that tax incidence or the tax burden does affect our producer and our consumer, and there ends up being some sort of loss, deadweight loss, that's experienced because of the change. To show this graphically, we have our supply curve, we have our two demand curves, D1 and D2, and we're looking at the price and the quantity in milk. Our price without the tax was $4. That was our equilibrium price. But our new price is going to go up because of that tax. So we move down to E2. This is the new equilibrium. And we can see here that our supply has shifted back to only 750,000 gallons because that's what the market would be demanding at point E2. Now here in the shaded in area that's yellow, we can see the deadweight loss triangle. The top half of this triangle represents the loss in consumer surplus, and the bottom half is going to represent the loss in producer surplus. This is what we were getting before if we were over at that equilibrium E1 point. There are possible gains from trade that could have been recognized that the tax eliminates. And the way that we calculate that deadweight loss is we're going to take 1/2, because there's half of it is producer, half of it's consumer. And we're going to multiply that by 1,000 minus 750 times 450 minus 350, because we have that tax of $1. Now this is going to be where we go ahead and stop this video. If you're feeling confident with deadweight loss and you're ready to move on, you can head over to Blackboard to watch the next video that's going to talk more about deadweight loss as well as taxation and elasticity. Thank you.